In this on-location episode of OG55, we are talking about what happened. Why didn't they bring up Tomorrowland at the D23 Ultimate Fan event? Once again, fans were stood up at the altar in regards to Tomorrowland. This happens expo after expo after expo after expo. You'd think we would learn our lesson by now, but here we are up next on this episode of OG55. Let's get it. Get it. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG55 on location. I am in the same studio, or actually hotel room, with the Italiano. We are talking all about Tomorrowland and why wasn't it brought up at the expo. There were hints, big hints, actually, even at the expo that we were going to get some Tomorrowland. Yeah. But George, if you want to let everyone at home know where they can find you on social media before we get started.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Stick it. The lovely girls of Kiss of Life, Belle, Nadi, and Julie, right, George? Julie.
Absolutely.
But yeah, let's dive right in. So, George, we heard all the rumors, all the speculation.
All the talk.
Tomorrowland was coming. We were going to get a new Tomorrowland, and from really, actually, honestly, some really solid sources.
Yeah.
You know, we were seeing this, and honestly, it looked like when we were at the expo, they had this beautiful montage of the parks to start off. And they focused pretty significantly on Tomorrowland.
Like it was like the final piece, like when it was like the final scene of the montage where it showcased like kind of the entranceway to Tomorrowland, kind of have like that futuristic arch,
right.
And it zoomed in onto like the castle, which we thought, well, in my case anyway, that I thought that might have been the final announcement, which I've heard rumbles in the jungle that that's really what the intention was, and it got pulled the last minute.
Yeah, that makes sense. We've heard that at these expos they can do that. Yes. They can kind of go in there like days before and take something off the roster, and that's probably what happened. It was in the montage. It seemed like there was some sort of Tomorrowland thing, but it was interesting. The Tomorrowland that they showed though was Disney World's Tomorrowland.
Yes,
it wasn't Disneyland, so that's interesting. I wonder if like people were getting it wrong, assuming it was Disneyland that was going to get the news, but it was really Florida, which that's fascinating, you know. But in terms of Disneyland's Tomorrowland, there's a couple of things going on here as to why they didn't announce it. I think that Disney kind of right now, I feel like they got bigger fish to fry.
Yes.
You know, I think that we have Disneyland Forward. Obviously, they're going to go with the big IP stuff. They're going to go for the Avatar, the Cocos, and all that stuff. Tomorrowland, I've said it before, it doesn't really have an IP that they can really pull from like you can with these other franchises, like even like, you know, like Frozen, which is rumored to go into Disneyland at one point. These are huge franchises, and you don't really have a big IP like that you can throw into Tomorrowland.
Right.
I don't know. I guess you can maybe do Fantastic Four, depending on how that movie does, which looks really good, by the way.
Also with Elio.
Well, that's true. And Elio looks really cute, too. I was really impressed by both of those, you know, the footage we saw over there at the expo. But we don't know how those are going to do yet.
Right.
So I think Disney's really focusing more on, like, the IP, the big IP that they can kind of, they know our hits.
They can bank on.
And you also have to understand, too, with Tomorrowland, it's really an aesthetics problem more than anything else. Okay, I understand people are gonna be like, "Oh, gee, what about the People Mover track and what about the launch bay being empty?" I understand that, but for the most part, we have a bunch of rides in Tomorrowland. You got Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters, you got Star Tours, Space Mountain, even the subs, Autopia. These attractions are still packing them in.
Yeah,
Tomorrowland is still very popular with guests. So Disney has very little incentive to start going in there to start bulldozing and ripping this thing up for a cosmetic fix. Because that's what it would be, basically, a cosmetic fix. The rides, the attractions they offer in that land are still popular. You know what I'm saying? They're still doing well. So it's like there's not a whole bunch of incentive. On top of the fact that, like I said, there's no big IP that you can really put in there that's going to
I think too that probably Disney kind of noticed that, like when they added it into the beginning kind of like montage, intro to Horizons, that they're making all these big announcements. Monsters Inc. at Hollywood Studios, Avatar and DCA, the Tropical Americas and Animal Kingdom, Villains and Cars into Magic Kingdom. Then like at the very end of it, it's like, oh yeah, we're doing a paint job on Tomorrowland. It's like,
that's true.
That would be so lackluster.
That would. And yes, that would be. That's a great point. If you're going to do Tomorrowland, I think you should do it right. Like, we don't want to be here again in 10 years. Right. So really come up with a game plan. Really give the Imagineers a budget. Let's figure this thing out. Mm-hmm. Because what we're hearing from what they were going to do for Disneyland's Tomorrowland was basically a paint job, and I think maybe a retheme of Buzz Lightyear into like a Wreck-It Ralph maybe or something. Yeah. Pretty minor shit. You know what I'm saying? I think Tomorrowland needs a really like a big investment and a big reimagining, and if you don't have the funds right now to do it because you're kind of like, look, you got all this other stuff coming. You got all these Avengers. You take it. I mean, Avengers rides for DCA. You got Coco. You got Pandora. You got all this stuff coming. If you can't really put the proper funds and resources into a new Tomorrowland, maybe it is best just to kind of wait until you do have that money, those resources, and you can do it right.
Because I think for them to be able to do that, majority of Tomorrowland is going to have to go down. So because they're going to have to like maneuver things, maybe do, as I said, a new paint job, new fixtures, give it a whole new look. That's basically what Tokyo is doing with their Tomorrowland.
Right.
So I feel like that Disney is going to want to have things to kind of offset for guests, that if they have to take the whole land down, it's not going to be so detrimental for travelers or visitors because they'll have new stuff to do.
Right, exactly. So we'll see. I mean, look, I want a new Tomorrowland like the next guy. I mean, we all want a new Tomorrowland, but I want them to do it right, though. I don't want them to go in there and just sort of give it a paint job and call it a day or whatever. I want them to go in there and really, personally, if it was up to me, I would go in there and spend a ton of money and bulldoze a lot of it. And give us actually a new Tomorrowland.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm really rooting for this Fantastic Four movie to do well.
I am too.
Because that has that retro mid-century future that I think would be perfect for Tomorrowland. And if Fantastic Four makes over $1 billion and is hugely successful, which I think it has a shot at, it looks really, really good. Mm-hmm. That would be a franchise I would like to see in Tomorrowland.
Me too.
I know technically it's Marvel and DCA is the Marvel park, but I think for this, I think an exception could be made.
It could be made.
I think it's too tailor-made, really.
Could you possibly see Fantastic Four eventually replacing Star Tours?
Maybe. Yeah, that's not a bad option, So, or even bulldozing Launch Bay and giving us an e-ticket.
Yeah. Or shocker, folks. How about Dave's not going to like me for this. Get rid of Autopia.
Autopia. Sorry, Dave from Fresh Bakes.
Dave. I love you, man, but
yeah, Autopia. It just for putt cars at Disneyland, which is like world-class theme park.
And it's a big chunk of land,
and it's a huge chunk of land, and you're kind of blowing it on that. I get it. We're stuck with Autopia at least to some degree. Like they might shorten it. They might lessen the footprint.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee they won't do that.
Well, because people thought that it was going to be gone. The Speedway in Magic Kingdom, they thought it was going to be completely gone for Tron, and they just shortened the track.
Yeah, so we might get a shortened track for Autopia when they go in there to kind of add the electric cars and stuff like that. But it is staying; it's not going anywhere.
I think, like based off of what Tomorrow was mentioning with all these projects that was officially announced at D23, it's going to have like a 5-year kind of plan to have all this up and running. I could possibly see them doing something with Tomorrowland after the 5 years.
Absolutely. And that's what fans have to understand too, is we have to like kind of understand that this stuff, they can't do everything at once. And you don't want to do everything at once. Exactly. You want to space out these investments because you don't want to blow your whole load, and then you have nothing else to go for. You want to sort of place this stuff in a way where you're constantly getting that influx. So when one thing kind of fades away, the next new thing is there to kind of replace it, right?
Because even Iger had mentioned, they want to leave gaps and room for new content, new IPs that come from the Disney studios,
right,
such as new films, they
Exactly.
want to be able to add new stuff, because you're right. If they put everything in there at once, they use their whole basket for all the eggs.
And then a new IP comes in, and it's bonker. Like if Fantastic Four comes in, and it's like, oh my God, it made $1.5 billion, and it's like, oh shit, we already reimagined Tomorrowland. Now what do we do? So you want to have that flexibility. So I want Tomorrowland to be addressed. But if they don't have a plan for it, or they don't have a big plan for it, and it's basically just lipstick on a pig to get them through the next 10 years, I don't want that. If you don't have a real plan and real money to go into this thing, then probably don't even touch it and just wait. It's still bringing in the crowds. Yeah, the normies still like Tomorrowland. They do. So you might as well just kind of keep it for now until you got a big plan, and then you can go in there with the bulldozers and go all out, so we'll see.
And I think honestly too, that, as you had mentioned, that in the showcase of Horizons, it did kind of look like it was kind of main focus. I didn't think of that until you actually mentioned it.
It was Disney World.
It was Disney World. So it wasn't even Disneyland's.
Yeah. Oh, so y'all ain't gonna let nobody disrespect the West Coast, huh?
I know, right? They're disrespecting the West Coast. Come on, Disney. So interesting stuff. Well, interesting stuff. Now, our good friend Bricky, he did a video. I did see he did a video on Tomorrowland.
He did, yes,
on this topic. So we have not watched that video yet. So we wanted to put our own video out with our kind of reasons as to why they didn't talk about Tomorrowland. So it's gonna be interesting. We're gonna watch Bricky's video and kind of see,
and then we're gonna say, "Oh shit, why didn't we?"
Shit, because Bricky's brilliant. We love Bricky. He's absolutely brilliant. But we'll do a reaction video to that one. But it'll be very interesting. I'm kind of curious as to what Bricky says about this too.
Absolutely.
So. But George, if you let everybody know where they could find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news.
There it is. Comment down below with everything on your mind. Why was Tomorrowland left out of this expo? Clearly, it was in the montage. Clearly, they had something for it. It was pulled last minute. Why was it pulled last minute? Is it just the announcement that was pulled, or are the plans now on the back burner? That's another thing, So what are your thoughts? We would love to hear from you. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of OG55 on location. Peace.